Welcome to Playing Every Final Fantasy Kinda Gaiden, a vlog series covering spin-offs, alternate versions, and anything else that doesn't fit into the main format of the show. Today, we are talking about Final Fantasy on the NES. Today, I am drinking a non-alcoholic Barrow Kingston Golden Pills from Target. The big takeaway: I want to apologize to Final Fantasy 1. You see, when I was getting footage initially, there was something that caught my eye. It's this little thing called the drink command. Never seen anything like that in Final Fantasy before. I was wondering, why is that a specific command in the command list? And when you pull on that thread regarding Final Fantasy 1, you start to realize the game's mechanics are the way they are for a reason. Now, Final Fantasy 1, a lot of people will try and pass on because you think, well, there's no auto-targeting. I don't want to play that. That's archaic. It's going to be slow. It's going to be archaic. I don't know if I want to play that. And I am guilty of thinking that as well. In fact, I'm very guilty of thinking that. But the game's mechanics are the way they are for a reason. After playing Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster, and you can see this in the video, I've referenced this a number of times, my main takeaway was that there really wasn't a whole lot of resistance. There wasn't any friction. There wasn't much to do in that game. You kind of just glided through it. And that's because the quality of life elements that other versions of Final Fantasy 1 introduce kind of just neuter Final Fantasy 1 completely. When you are dealing with a game that asks you to very specifically target your opponents because they're not going to auto-target afterwards, the game is actually built around that to make it more, dare I say, entertaining. You have to actually think about what you're going to do next. You have to strategize how you're going to take on 7 goblins, because even 7 goblins require a little bit of thinking. Because of that, battles are actually way more meaningful and way more exciting. And maybe most importantly, the chances for things to go wrong exist way more. When things go wrong in Final Fantasy 1 battles, they go very wrong. Things go bad when things go bad. The tension almost never lets up. You don't ever feel like you are just blazing through encounters because you have to stop and think about every turn, and if something goes wrong, you better have a plan of action. And honestly, there's a lot of times where you don't have a plan of action. You just need to hope it doesn't go wrong. So much of the game is more constrained because of this. Things like healing or things like being stoned are so much more impactful because the ways to deal with that you just naturally assume are in a Final Fantasy game aren't there yet. Battles are also slow. Like, when you do a multi-hitting target spell, it takes forever. And I can think, alright, this is maybe the biggest friction point for a lot of people. And I was thinking also, this is maybe the one thing I'm not liking about the game. Until I realized on the title screen that response rate, that's actually the game battle speed, and it can go up to like 8. I had it on 5, and that felt fast enough. If you put it on 8, this game probably goes blazing fast. This game goes turbo fast. It must be one of the faster Final Fantasies. I initially kind of complained about some of the dungeons, but under this new set of difficulty, those dungeons make a little bit more sense. You have to go on expeditions, more or less. You have to go in, come out, because you only have so many resources, and then you can go in again and get a little further, but you also need to know, I have to get out of here. I only have so many resources before I run out. And when I run out, as we said, things go bad. You can only go so far into a dungeon, realize I've got X amount of potions left, and if I don't turn around right now, that's game over. There isn't a way to help you out of this until much, much later in the game. And I've been kind of dancing around this. I've been mentioning things like how difficult this is, how more constrained things are. Let's actually set it down for a second. This is before all of the items you would expect to be in a Final Fantasy game have been invented. There are 3 consumables in Final Fantasy 1. Take some time. Just guess what 3 Final Fantasy consumables would be in this game. You said Phoenix Down, you are wrong. If you said Ether, you are also wrong. It is Potion, Antidote, and what would qualify as the Golden Needle. You can heal, you can remove poison, and you can remove stone. That's it. That's the only 3 items in this game. And you can't use the golden needle in battle. You can only use that drink command for potions and antidotes. Final Fantasy 1 is so much more difficult because healing is fucked up. That potion heals roughly 30 HP. Never gets better. Doesn't matter how many hours you are into the game, your fighter could have 400 health. The only healing consumable you have access to is a 30 HP or so potion. You will spend the entire game stocking and restocking back to 99 potions because 99 potions isn't enough. You will constantly need more. You will find yourself going into dungeons with 99 potions and hoping that is enough to get you to the end and back. Because if it isn't, what's your next plan? Something I failed to mention that does make this a little easier was, I didn't talk about this in the Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster video, but the delineation between drink and item on the menu is because those consumables, all fucking 2 of them, are things you drink, and your items are now things you use. For most of the game, that won't make sense, but towards the 3/4 part of the game, you start getting items that can cast spells for free just by using them in battle. This becomes the essential part of Final Fantasy 1. You need to have the gauntlet that casts lightning 2. You need to have the wand that casts heal 1. You are still stuck under the magic charges system, and there's only 9 charges of cure. So that 99 potion isn't getting a whole hell of a lot of help. And with however many other additional magics you're going to need, those 5 casts of Cure 2, that's premium. You're going to need to find a way to use those when you need them the most. But your White Mage is support central in this game. Because so many other things are gone from the item list, your White Mage is really just truly the backbone. You need those extra healings. You need the ability to warp out of a dungeon. There's no escape rope or anything yet. That's your White Mage's job. There's also some bugginess that makes their heal 2, which is their multi-person heal, work better in battle only, and you'll need that advantage. Conversely, Black Mages kind of suck in this game. Magic is not like a bomb drop when it comes down, unless you absolutely know what elemental weakness it's hitting, and even then, sometimes it's not the best. But once you get to about Fire 2 or so, which is the first of the level 2 spells, then you can start getting multi-target spells, and that helps out a ton. However, towards the end game, they will once again fall off, because hitting everything for not the best damage isn't going to get you very far. So, surprisingly, these guys don't feel as important as you might think they are, given how much you would think magic's gonna do. But that might also just have been a bug, because my knight and my black belt, towards the end of the game, they were doing crits like 8 out of 10 times. Like I felt like they had an 80% crit rate. They were just smoking damage and leaving nothing but bags of bones behind them. So when my Black Mage is like, I'm going to spend one of my extremely precious and rare high-level magic spells to do 150 damage, that didn't really feel all that great when my fighter hit for like 375. But don't think for a second that having 2 big beefy boys hitting for huge chunks of damage makes this game any easier. When a character dies, it is catastrophic. You can't use the revive command in battle. You have to wait till you're out of battle, and you're only going to have a couple charges of that at most. When your White Mage dies, you might as well reset. There's no other way to heal. There's no other way to revive them. They're the only person with that power. You're going to have to escape the dungeon with their dead body behind you, and you better start moving right now, because they're the thing keeping your party together. Heaven help you if you're multiple levels deep and they die, because they're the one with the warp spell that gets you out of there. The Black Mage can have one that gets them a floor up, but the White Mage is the only one that gets them all the way out in one fell swoop. Now, given the bugginess of this game, you are going to want to play with a guide. You're going to need some level of knowledge, like capital K knowledge. Not from the game, but from external sources. And I think that's okay, because realistically, when the game came out, you had an instruction manual, which was going to give you a bunch of help with this game. Like, legitimately serious knowledge that you needed to know. And also the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide was out there. So there was more than enough existing knowledge to help people through this game, because this game doesn't tell you shit. Like, you're just going to have a hard time figuring out, what's this armor going to do differently? What's this sword going to do differently? What do these spells really do? They're called like SBA2. It doesn't explain it. You only have so many characters you can describe things with. So the manual was so vital for figuring out just the basics. But also then you start dealing with the bugginess, because some spells just don't work. Some things just don't operate correctly. They're pulling from the wrong stat charts. The stats are bugged themselves. They don't work right. And once you have the knowledge to get yourself around all of that, then you can actually play the game and have a fucking blast. You know, you're not trying to bang your head against the wall to figure out why some things aren't working. You're not making the wrong mistakes with buying certain spells that you thought would be cool. You just need to sidestep a puddle or two, basically. And then at that point, the game unlocks and you're good to go. It's actually a blast to play this game once you've avoided the one or two major pitfalls that the bugginess can create. Now, without a map, like the Pixel Remaster gives you, then you get to understand where some of that very rudimentary dungeon exploration comes from. It makes more sense when you see it on an NES screen and you realize I can only see as far as the screen is allowing me to go. At that point, you'll realize, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. When the Pixel Remaster allows you to just pull up a map of the dungeon floor, then it feels like there's just arbitrary dead ends for no good reason. But under those initial constraints, you do have a better sense of exploration and tension, because you don't want to find yourself going to a dead end. Your resources are quite finite, and you don't have all day to spend here. So with that secondhand knowledge that removes the BS, with the understanding of how the battle system works, it's not a bug, it's a feature, it's a good thing. When you have all that, I think Final Fantasy 1 on the NES is amazing. I think it's actually fantastic. It blows Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster completely out of the water. They're night and day. I would highly recommend Final Fantasy 1 over Pixel Remaster any day of the week and twice on Sundays. But that said, I don't know if I would necessarily bump it any higher up my personal tier list of Final Fantasy games. It's not that it has now eclipsed so many games that I think are better. It's just that whatever the floor was has risen significantly. And the things that kind of do hold it back are, even if you are aware of some of the bugs, there is still a level of like crypticness to the game that makes hunting for some key items really devious. Like, it's not Castlevania 2 bad. You know, they'll tell you things, but when a character says like, oh, the rogue robot took the cube to the west, good fucking luck. How are you going to know it's a waterfall in the west? How are you going to know the waterfall's even a thing you can go in? That's just kind of rough, but I get it. It's way less cryptic than other games of that era, and it should be lauded for that, but this is another place where the knowledge is going to help out. I did say I would not recommend FF1 Pixel Remaster, but I also get if you don't want to dive in directly headfirst into FF1 NES. If you have the time and if you have the gumption, play one of the modern versions. You can play Pixel Remaster if you want, and then like a year later, come back and play the NES version. I think you're going to lose a lot playing a modern version of it, and I can't speak for all of them. I haven't played them all yet. We'll see in time. I'm going to play more of them on this series, but you're going to lose a little bit. I don't know how much, but a little bit. And I think when you come back to FF1 on the NES, you're going to realize just how much was lost in all of that quality of life change. And hopefully you enjoy it more, because I know for a fact I loved this. I thought this was a complete blast, front to back. I had the time of my life playing Final Fantasy 1, and when I finished it, I was elated that it was something I actually sat down and took care of. So with that type of reward at the end, I will say you should, at some point, doesn't have to be first, doesn't have to be now, you should play Final Fantasy 1. As always, be good to each other, explore your creativity, and I'll see you later.